All right. Looks like Dr. Scribner's here. I'm not sure if we are waiting for anybody else to get started. All right, we are live on Facebook now. So it is 5 o'clock. We are going to get ready to get started with our second town hall this evening. I'm so excited to have everybody join us today. First of all, I want to just introduce myself. My name is Doreen Benavides, and I am the Executive Director for the Division of Equity and Excellence. And tonight I will be your moderator. We have several guest panelists, and we want to first start by thanking them for joining us this evening. And so tonight we have Dr. Kent Scribner. We have our school board, Jacinto Ramos Jr., and we have two additional panelists who have joined us this evening. We have Mr. Norman Robbins, and we have Mr. Quinton Phillips. First of all, I want to do a quick announcement for the audience members who are just jumping onto this call today. You can listen to this conversation both on YouTube and on Facebook Live. We also have interpretation provided today, both sign language and for those who want to listen in Spanish. And I'll give you some directions on that in just a second. I want to say thank you to Monique Air and Christopher Lapena for interpreting sign language tonight, and also to Ms. Quiroz Spinelli for interpreting for us in Spanish. Si necesitan la información en español, por favor, este momento que tocan el botón que es el tipo de mundo, y así pueden oír la información en español. Si ahorita, por favor, si están aquí en chat, tocan el botón en la pantalla, usted mira como un mundo, y ahí pueden oír la información en español. All right. So we are going to get started with some introductions. We'll begin with Dr. Scribner, and he'll have a quick introduction, and then we'll go to President Ramos.
Thank you very much, Doreen, and good afternoon to our Fort Worth ISD school community. We are eager to get started on our second virtual town hall this week. Yesterday evening, we had a very informative and productive conversation with our Spanish-speaking parents who represent almost half of our total student population. I think it's important to note that Fort Worth ISD serves 209 square miles across Fort Worth, a diverse student population that's rich in diversity. We have right now about 83,000 students. 42,000 of them come from homes where English is the primary language. About 3,000 come from homes where any one of 68 different languages are spoken. And 38,000 of our students come from homes where Spanish is the primary language. So it was important last night for us to also communicate with our Spanish-speaking school community, and again tonight with you. The goal, obviously, is to get our school year started on the right foot, get students learning in school and virtually. Want to do that in a safe way. As you all may have heard this afternoon, we received new information. The state has changed our rules, and we will thoughtfully work through those new rules to understand how to best begin our instructional program to benefit our students, our faculty and staff in a safe way. We'll talk about that more in a minute, and our team is already researching and reviewing the ramifications of that new decision, so we can launch our school year as effectively and efficiently as possible. Thank you all for joining us. Look forward to a positive conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. President Ramos.
Yeah, well, good evening at this point with everyone. Good to see everyone. We are here as a board to listen. Our board has been doing a lot of work around governance, and our board wanted to understand how to be better governing board members. As many of you know, we have 9 single-member districts, and so it's a full-time job for us to be able to stay focused on what our role is and what we should or shouldn't be doing. I think that you will notice that the majority of the questions will more than likely be answered by our superintendent. So particularly for us as a board, to be here to listen, to hear multiple perspectives so that we can walk back into our boardroom and make even better decisions. And so echoing the great part of having a diverse population that we serve with so many different perspectives. It's absolutely important for us to hear what everyone is thinking, what everyone is feeling. And then again, I think just rolling off of the conversation that was taken last night from our Spanish-speaking community of where they were and how they feel currently with the state. So as Dr. Scribner mentioned, there was another change today. Things changed nationwide, statewide, and as we're seeing probably even here locally, because who we elect and who we put in positions matter. And so we will reassess as a board and as a superintendent team, and then we'll move from there. So looking forward to hearing everyone's perspectives as we go into this town hall tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
Thank you so much, and appreciative to our superintendent, Dr. Scribner, also to our board president, Jacinto Ramos Jr. Thank you for your leadership during this time. Appreciate everyone who's on this town hall right now. This is the idea of what we really want our school district to look like, as far as being able to have the community input, be able to hear from those parents, those students, the teachers, the administrators within the district, to really be able to have a true grasp of the way that people feel and the input that they have, because we're all in this together. So with these virtual town halls, it truly is an opportunity for us to be able to truly listen, to be transparent about giving out the information that we have as well, just because we want people to be well informed, and we want you to understand that as we're well informed, we're making the best decisions that's absolutely possible for all of our students. We make sure that all was highlighted, and above everything else within our mission statement. We truly mean that. Beyond a shadow of a doubt that all 9 trustees on the board always make these decisions with students first. We always come from the lens of students first. So just know that is the case. But it's a great honor to be here. I know that we're going to have a great session tonight, and look forward to hearing from the community.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. And Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, and good afternoon, good evening to everyone. It's my pleasure to join you this evening. The town hall session that was held last night was very beneficial. We as board members are here to listen to your comments and questions, learn from you. This is a very fluid situation, as you all know. Our pledge to you is to provide your students, our students, with the finest education we can, whether it's virtually or in person or both. And I would also like to mention that all of our board members either have kids, grandkids, family members, friends, loved ones that are students in our school district. So we take this very, very seriously. We know you all do as well. And we hope that we can answer and address many of your comments and concerns this evening. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So I just want to set a little bit of the groundwork for the conversation this evening. First of all, if you're on our live Zoom chat, what we will ask you to do is put your name and the topic that you want to ask a question on in the chat box, and then we'll call you in order that you have submitted that information. If you're on Facebook Live, you can add some comments to that chat, and our team will be receiving some of those questions that you're asking. But for the live chat, we will be doing it directly through Zoom, and you will have the opportunity to ask questions. We will also be taking some questions that we had submitted from Slido. Slido, we had around 800 questions submitted. And so we're going to take the top 10 or 12 of those Slido questions tonight so that we can try to answer as many of those as possible. I will say there was a lot of repetition of the same type of question, so we have condensed those responses for you. Because it was a lot of the similar type of questions. And as Dr. Scribner mentioned a little while ago, we have been receiving a lot of great updates today. I know that our Texas Attorney General Paxton made some updates and suggestions today as well. And so tonight we welcome questions, comments, and suggestions for our team, so that we can consider how we're going to make some adjustments, but we really want to hear from our community so that we can make those adjustments based on the feedback that we received yesterday and also today. And also groundedness in how we have our equity conversations. And so I want to start with, first of all, as part of this conversation, we want to make 4 agreements and 2 conditions. First of all, that's staying engaged in the conversation, and we're going to experience some discomfort. We also want you to speak your truth, and we really want to hear and listen to what it is that you have to say, but we will probably expect and accept some non-closure to this conversation, but it will be ongoing. Additionally, as part of our conditions, we want you to isolate yourself and keep it personal, local, and immediate, and isolate your race. This is about you. This is about how it's affecting your community. And we really want you to be able to share as much information with us as possible. So we want to go ahead and get started with those questions. And we're going to take some live first, and then we will go to our Slido. So on our live, we have Ken Cole, and he has a question about virtual learning. So Dr. Scribner, we've got Ken Cole on virtual learning.
Hi, Dr. Scribner and board. Thank you so much for taking this time. I very much enjoyed last night's town hall and was inspired and encouraged by some of the ideas that were discussed for our virtual learning for the first 6 weeks. I, like so many families, are concerned about the well-being of the most vulnerable kids in our community, but we also have to be aware of multi-generational families that live together and the spread of this virus in situations like that. So to hear some of the discussions, like in elementary ideas to, one fourth grade teacher teaching each fourth grade group science because that's what their strength is, and a math, a fourth grade math teacher all teaching all fourth grade groups math, so that when the kids do come back to school, they're familiar with all of those teachers, and they don't. We don't have to deal with the issue that I know that some of the parents at my school were concerned about, that they'll have one virtual teacher and then they'll go back to school and have a different in-person teacher, which is especially difficult for the younger kids in elementary, which is where my daughter is. I'm a white male. I'm a active PTA member at South Highmount Elementary. So I wanted to thank you for this, and I was very, as much as I hate to postpone sending my daughter back to school, I was glad to hear that for 6 weeks we're going to have this engaging virtual school environment for Fort Worth students, so that we're better prepared to come back strong when we've got this pandemic under control. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cole. The next person is Lisa, and she has another question or comment about live instruction.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so my main concern was, would y'all be doing more live streaming of classes? Like at the end of last year, I have 3 8th graders. I have a stepson, and then I have 2 that are mine, and they're 8th grader, and they're going to the 9th grade. Last year, at the end of last year, I know they were meeting with a teacher, 2 different teachers every other day on Mondays and Wednesdays with a face-to-face that would last maybe about 10 minutes. And then they were gradually doing their work on their own. Is there going to be more live streaming of classes? Like I guess what I'm getting at is I have 2 children that go to Idea Public School, and they start August the 11th, and their classes will be online in front of their computer doing live classes from 8:30 to 3:30, being able to log off at 12:30 for lunch. So their classes will be online live streaming as if they were actually in class. Will y'all be doing something more to that matter for the 9th graders or all of the students?
So thank you for that question, Lisa. I think it creates a great opportunity for us to talk about the difference between this fall and last spring. As you know, last spring, we discovered this pandemic affected us and shut our city and school district down in March. In fact, the last day that Fort Worth ISD students attended school in a school building was March the 6th. The following week happened to be our spring break. So during that week, several of us continued to work and plan, as we found that it was likely that we were going to have to do something different in terms of virtual learning. Last spring, obviously, Fort Worth ISD, all major districts, all districts really, but certainly all large urban districts across Texas and across the nation faced the same thing. We had 25 and 30-year veteran teachers, exceptional teachers, who quickly became first-year teachers again because they, for the first time, had to teach completely online, completely virtual.
Correct.
This fall will be greatly different. those students who will be learning virtually, and again, with this afternoon's ruling, we certainly will have students in person as well. But those students who will be learning virtually, we believe in this 2.0 version will receive much more robust, organized, and consistent virtual instruction for those students. The curriculum will be Fort Worth ISD curriculum, developed all last spring and this summer. The training that will take place intensively will happen on the first day that teachers return, August the 10th through the 14th. Full week of virtual training for those teachers. Granted, many of those teachers have already participated in some training, but we really want to reassure you and reassure our school community that this fall, with the preparation, with the time, and with the planning, the virtual instruction will be of much higher quality in Fort Worth and across the major cities in America, in my view.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. Lisa, thank you for the question. Our next caller is Renee Walker, and she has a question on pre-K instruction. Go ahead, Ms. Walker.
With the virtual learning, I have a pre-K student coming in. My question is, how will we do this virtually? And if we choose not to do it virtually, can the student come in when the 6 weeks are up as face-to-face comes back?
Yes, this afternoon's guidance provided to the mayor of Stephenville, really, but providing information to all of us, did indicate that students would be able to either learn virtually or in person. For those students who are learning virtually, though, the pre-K students would need to have 3 hours of engagement from kinder through the 12th grade, 4 hours of engagement. And we all know how difficult that is with our younger students, the virtual as opposed to in person. In-person learning in early education is academic, but it's also about the socialization, interacting with their peers, learning to work in groups, problem solving, all of those social and emotional skills that are so necessary as they become more success, as they get older. Those are necessary towards success beyond the academic skill. So it is our desire that we likely will have a percentage of our parents who will continue to choose virtual. We'll have a percentage who will continue, who will ask to have in-person instruction, and we believe with that balance of numbers, we'll be able to keep the social distancing opportunities in place. Social distancing in pre-K and kindergarten, first and second, though, as you can imagine, is extremely difficult. The most recent guidance are changing every day, but the most recent guidance that I have seen from TEA is that students 10 years and older, I believe, will be required to use a mask. So students, a mouth covering. Students younger than 10 will not. So we want to really kind of encourage students, but obviously be developmentally understanding with regard to students' ability to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. Thank you, Ms. Walker, for the question. Dr. Scribner, we've had the question come up several times where they can find the most recent information shared by General Paxton. Where can they find that information, or Attorney General Paxton?
Well, I'm sure it's posted on the Attorney General of Texas website. The letter that was issued this afternoon, concludes that the decision to close schools in such a preventative basis, whether they're public or private schools, remains with the school system leaders, who should consult with relevant public health authorities, including the department and local health authorities. So we will certainly monitor that. I know that there's been a great deal of reporting on that letter of guidance, both here in our local media, but also on social media as well.
Thank you for that, Dr. Scribner. And I just want to remind our guests that are joining us, First of all, we have 465 participants on this call today. So thank you so much for joining us. This is a very important topic, and we really want to hear your questions, your feedback, your suggestions tonight. As you can see, our board members, some of our board members are here, and Dr. Scribner is here to answer questions live and also take some from Slido. But this is your opportunity to give us that feedback so that when we go back and we meet with our teams, we can make some really great informed decisions based on the information you're sharing with us tonight. The next person who's up is Barbara. Barbara has a question on plexiglass.
All right, I'm asking this question as a teacher and as a parent. Is the district at all considering using plexiglass in the classroom for student desks in the teacher workstation, in addition to the social distance, face mask, and thorough cleaning? And if so, I know it costs money, but if it wasn't the money factor, because we probably could work around that, okay? But I'm just concerned. And I think coming back into the classroom in other professions, people are wearing masks, but they're not going to have to do the level of talking that the teacher has to the student. And it's got to be clear. They don't need muffled conversation. So is there any way, hopefully the students and the desk, but if there could be a plexiglass around the teacher's workstation so that when you're giving your instruction, when we return back to the classroom, it's going to be clear to the students what you're saying, because like I say, it's going to be a little bit more talking in our profession than maybe in others where people are wearing the face mask to work. So that's my question.
So that's an excellent question. There's a lot of questions in there actually. So let's start with plexiglass. Yes, the district has authorized us to, the Board of Trustees has authorized me and my team to invest in many PPE items, including plexiglass. The one interesting thing we were learning about plexiglass, though, is with ventilation and air conditioning, sometimes droplets escape the plexiglass, and so it by itself is not the answer. We certainly want to continue to implement social distancing where feasible. Encourage students 10 and above to wear face masks, washing hands. The board has also authorized us. We're bringing in our custodians. Before we'd had daytime custodians and evening custodians. We're bringing all of those custodians during the daytime, so we have constant and regular cleaning, even though it'll be a bit of a disruption as compared to the past, but it's a necessary disruption. We want to maintain cleanliness in our campuses. But all of those things, you're right, they do cost money. And it is our hope that the federal government in this next round will invest in schools in the same way that they've invested in corporations in the past, and keeping them afloat. We want certainly them to understand that our students are the most valuable assets in our society and should be invested in as such. And we think the PPE investment is a necessary investment. And moving forward in Fort Worth ISD, we certainly want to make sure that we are focused on health and safety. So when this pandemic eventually is brought under control, as you know, we're currently seeing substantial community spread right now in Tarrant County. But when it is brought under control, we want to make sure that we can stay ahead of cleanliness moving forward. Thank you for those questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hollingsworth. We've got one more question from Heather McDaniel, and then we're going to go some of our Slido questions. Heather McDaniel had a question on special education.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay, little different here. My son actually he left his high school this year. We're supposed to be on our way to a program that's held at the administration building called Lift. I'm at the point I don't have a transition teacher because the one I had got sent somewhere else. The other one quit. I have been calling, leaving messages and so forth. My questions are, do we have a plan for our special education students? speech therapy, things to go ahead and start trying to get ahead of the game. Whereas, no more regression, especially since March. It was hard for me, but I did it. I scheduled myself around my child's work to get him to where he needed to be. But I think we're kind of behind in the game for these kids. And so I really want to try to see if there's any way that we're getting to a spot. Do we have any type of, I know we're still in the works of things, but do we have any type of game plan? And just the communication, just to have somebody call me and say, hey, I don't know, just, so that's kind of my question, but, communication wise.
Yes, thank you for that question. Yes, the program absolutely still exists, and there's through the age limitations, we can, if you hang on, Doreen, maybe if Heather can hang on after we answer the question, we can get our personal information. But regardless of the environment, whether it's virtual or in person, we certainly will schedule services. Obviously, in these cases, it's incumbent upon us all, parent and school folk, to address these learning plans individually on a case-by-case basis. So certainly the ARD meeting will be important to get that scheduled so that you can get the services that you need. And I know in some of our programs, like the one you described, the students have unique needs. We want to make sure that that irrespective of whether a parent chooses virtual or in person, that we're able to meet the needs of those students. So if you can hang in there, Heather, Doreen and her team will get your information. And I know that program takes place here in the building that I work in. So I'll look forward to seeing your student, your child.
Thank you, Heather, for that question. And Ms. Daniel, we are going to have somebody from our team help you. We're reaching you through private messenger right now. We're going to ask one more question. We're going to take a live question. Sorry. This question is from Aaron Ogg, virtual with working parents, and it's going to be a great transition to one of the questions we have on Slido as well. Aaron?
I think you're on mute, Aaron.
All right. What we can do is we can go to slides.
Oh,
there she is.
Go ahead.
Yes, we're just both working parents. I have a first grader at West Park, and we're both working parents, and we really can't afford to take off 5 days a week. We're hoping her daycare will maybe do virtually with her, but I was just wondering about the working parents and the young ones, and just because if I take off 6 weeks, I'm not going to have a job. So just wondering about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. And the ruling, the letter of guidance this afternoon actually allows for in-person instruction. So if that is a choice that you would like to take advantage of, please do. Please register your child and communicate with us, because there are questions in the registration form that allow us to learn of any specific needs, any specific support a student or family requires, whether that be social emotional support or technology support. But with regard to virtual learning, if virtual learning were the choice, we certainly would want to provide you. And I think we have some information coming up, Doreen, with regard to the different options for family and for childcare.
Yes, so that's actually my next question. So I'm going to take the first question from Slido. The question is, what is being done by the district and community to support families unable to find or afford childcare to monitor virtual learning while parents have to work? We had 350 requests and likes on this one, so that was the most popular question on our Slido.
Well, thank you. As I think has been reported, I am often on the phone and meeting with many leaders in the community. And one of those individuals is the CEO of Childcare Associates. And they report that there are, in fact, now 10,000 available slots with regard to early child care, and 71% of their child care programs are, in fact, operational at this time. We will continue to work with our community partners that have shared their intention to open child care services when school comes back into session. One location that we would recommend is developed a tool, in fact, to assist parents, and that is called Best Place for Kids. Best Place, the number 4 kids, and it'll help parents locate daycare centers. That's bestplaceforkids.com. But also, given the new guidance, our own school-based early childhood programs will also be operational, and our team will be working feverishly here in the next 24 to 48 hours to put together our implementation plan, to finalize our implementation plan and share that with the community. So certainly look at Best Place for Kids, but also look to Fort Worth ISD's website for additional information. We will put that out both on our website and on social media.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. The next question is, you have had 11 weeks to prepare online, yet teachers have received zero support. Now we are in the same place as we were in March. How and why did you let this occur?
Yeah, I would push back a little bit on that assertion. I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. In fact, our team has been responding not only to teacher feedback, but also to parent feedback for preparing for fall instruction. As soon as we received confirmation that the state would allow virtual instruction this fall, we began finalizing our plans. I think, again, this is the distinction between last spring and this fall, kind of 1.0 and 2.0 of our virtual instruction. In fact, this week we're releasing a community overview document, professional learning opportunities for teachers. I indicated that when teachers would return to work on August the 10th, that those teachers who would be instructing virtually would receive an entire week with detailed guidelines to prepare them for virtual instruction. And we also remember that we have some teachers who are very adept at technology and others who require more support. And we want to allow our teachers not only to learn from each other, but have our technology, education technology staff also help. The plan is, before this afternoon's communique from the Attorney General, yesterday we issued a document to our teachers, teacher and support staff expectations for virtual learning about a robust, organized, and consistent virtual learning experience. Principals have reported to campus. Instructional staff obviously also are back at work now to support teachers to provide sample lessons and activities. Open schools for those teachers if they're teaching virtually, if they prefer to teach from a classroom. But again, with the landscape changing so quickly, we are going to be sharing our dual program with our faculty and staff here in the next day or so with regard to those students and those teachers who will be working in person and those who will be working virtually.
And if I could just add my 2 cents, Dr. Scribner, speaking local, personal, and immediate, I have had a lot of opportunity to collaborate with a variety of different departments within Fort Worth ISD, and we have worked on trying to get information out as quickly as possible to our teachers and help support as well. And so we've looked at all the different pieces as information is coming in. So thank you for that. And the last question we're going to ask from Slido, and they go back, is what will the virtual learning day look like so parents can make plans? Will teaching all take place at the same time for each grade?
So our virtual learning plan is an asynchronous model. That means students can work at their own rhythm, at their own pace. We don't want to necessarily require that it is in a fixed time period. However, in many cases, we want to provide structure for students. Some students respond much better when they have that framework. So this means that pre-K students for a minimum of 3 hours, and all other students from kinder to 12th grade would be engaged in virtual learning for a minimum of 4 hours. We are asking our principals to publish, each campus will publish a schedule for virtual instruction before the start of the school year. That work is starting already. We'll operate on a schedule. Principals and teachers will support families who need greater flexibility, because we understand a couple questions ago talked about my child will be learning virtually, but both of us work and we need coverage there. So we will be providing greater flexibility with learning. And we will expect that some synchronous teacher-student lessons and interactions will be taking daily. We really think it's important not only that we have the academic delivery of instruction, but also that there's a sense of connection. We're in a pandemic. These are historic, extremely difficult times for everyone, and we want to be as flexible as possible and offer both academics and social and emotional support.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. As we transition back to some live questions, I do want to remind guests that you can listen to this on YouTube. It will be posted later today, and it will be in both languages. So in case you are barely coming on, you will be able to catch up with the beginning part of the conversation. Also, if you are just joining us on the Zoom chat, you can submit your questions on Zoom chat. We may not be able to answer every question tonight, but we are creating a question and answer. So please know that if we don't answer them live tonight, we will be creating a question and answer for everyone here. Our next guest is going to be Lindsay Bartlin. She has a question about pre-K Chromebooks. Go ahead, Ms. Bartlin. Lindsay, can you hear us? Oh, she said her technology is not working. Okay, we'll come back to you. If we could go ahead and get Cheryl. She has a question on parent access to virtual learning. Cheryl?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Benavides. I want to know what visibility parents will have to the lessons and assignments and homework. I felt like in the spring, we didn't have any visibility from our high school student, and we have to keep him accountable and stay on him. We would ask him if his lessons were done. He said yes while he was on his video game, and we would log into Focus and see zeros. So what can you do for parents to give us access?
You will see a completely different scenario in the fall as compared to a spring. Remember, again, last spring's circumstance was not planned for. Interestingly enough, I was on a national panel with the superintendent of Miami-Dade Public Schools, and he indicated that their district pivoted quite nicely because they've had experience with hurricane. So they know what it is to educate from home for a week here or a week there. I think we're all going to benefit from this experience moving forward. Again, if we're not learning and we're not getting better, then we're heading in the wrong direction. I think you're going to see that this fall. This summer and heading into the school year, we are going to continue to offer training for parents, but different from last spring. There will be a schedule, expected engagement from teachers to students. Again, 4 hours for the older students. Teachers will post their expectations for instruction. They will have a Google Learning site, and again, that's what the training for parents will be about. And we will ensure that parents have a password and parents have access to those sites. So you will have your own access to your students' work on the Google Work site. Doreen, can you augment that answer if need be?
No, I think you covered most of it, Dr. Scribner. I don't know that I have anything additional to add to that. And I just wanted to remind any of our panelists, if you have any additional, please kind of signal me so that I can make sure to also call on you as well. I know that you're sitting listening here tonight, but in case I miss you, just make sure you signal me. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Cheryl, for the question. And if there's any additional information, we will definitely put it on the question and answer, okay? Our next person is A. They have a question on staff and a TA status at home or at campus. Go ahead, A.
Yeah, so we got the email stating that teachers were allowed to choose whether they wanted to work at home or on campus. But TAs and other support staff, we are only given the option to work on campus. I don't understand why we aren't given the same option that teachers are given.
So, I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty unmuting. So a couple things. One, based on yesterday's information, and again, changing landscape, that communication which took place yesterday obviously will need to change based on today's guidance letter. But we have to remember our core mission is teaching and learning. And our teachers are the most important individuals after the students in this organization. Everything else that happens is in order to support what happens in the classroom. So principals, instructional staff, all that support instruction would need to be on campus. Now that's all changed as a result of the guidance letter from the Attorney General, and likely there will be a significant number of employees now who will be reporting to the campus. Again, we're gonna review and research the ramifications of this new Attorney General letter of guidance, and we'll be communicating to our internal community and our external community our next steps.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. Our next person is Julissa Melendez. She's got a question on continuing the virtual to in-person. She just wants some clarification. Go ahead, Ms. Melendez.
So this might be moot considering the guidance issued today, but I was curious about whether students that choose to remain in virtual instruction after September 28 will get to remain with the same teacher as in the first 6 weeks. And if not, will they have teachers and not data clerks or some other staff member teaching them online? And how will you ensure continuity of instruction for these students?
That is our plan, to have continuity of instruction. And we really need to recognize that, again, we've already learned this is a fluid scenario, and likely it will be fluid for many months to come. We share the larger school community's desire to reopen schools, to reopen our economy. But what we want to do is open our schools so that we can keep them open. And that's going to be a challenge, obviously, that we all need to work hard so that we're successful and we can achieve that. But yes, the goal is to have continuity with a student who is learning virtually and then back in person. And perhaps later in the year, who knows, we may be going all virtual again. We'll have to just wait and see how this plays out. And as leaders and as community members, and as Fort Worth always does, we pull together, we monitor, and adjust. The concept of continuity is very, very important. And again, the difference between this year and last year is last year, students and teachers had an opportunity to build a relationship before it became a virtual relationship. This year, most students are going to be meeting their teacher for the first time on a computer screen, and all of us know that the interpersonal interaction is much more powerful in person.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. And we have another
Dr. Benavides, if I could jump in as well. So Dr. Scribner, thank you, man. You're doing a great job of fielding these questions as they're coming in. But I'm definitely looking at some of the some of the questions and the comments that's coming across the chats and everything. And so I just want to offer just a little bit of clarity, even though this might be murky as well, even as I try to offer this, but try to offer just a little bit of clarity for everybody who's tuning in and trying to figure all of this out. So originally, under everything that was going on, Dr. Scribner and his team and everybody within the district were working on plans of how we're going to be able to move forward through this whole pandemic thing. So we were putting plans in place for virtual learning. We were putting plans in place for in-person learning, trying to make sure that we would be able to do both with fidelity, with integrity, and that it was going to be handled well. And so from that point, as many of you know, that's on this call, that's asking questions, we've been kicked around some of every way. The decision is ours. The decision is not ours. It's the county's decision. It's public health officials' decision. It's the state of Texas, TA, it's the governor. We've been trying to compile all of this information as much as possible to be able to make the best decision. So that's why we even originally went to the format of let's give people an opportunity to even decide. Do you want in person? If you want to have your child in person, we'll have that option going. If you want your child to be virtual, we'll have that option going. So we were trying to do both of these at the same time to be able to see if we could get these things accomplished. And this was even well before any new information came out. So we're talking about late May, early June. We're trying to figure out if people are going to register in either one of those capacities and how we're going to be able to plan accordingly to what some of those numbers look like. We had some that was able to register both ways, but not big numbers of our registration, and understandably so, because even the community, public, students, parents didn't have all the information to make a real good decision on whether or not they even wanted to send their child back or whether they wanted to do the virtual learning. And I can completely understand that, and all of us have, right? So from this standpoint, we put out a plan of one day of, hey, this is what our return to school will look like. We weren't sure what the date of the return to school was going to look like, but we were like, hey, in the event of returning to school, because we know we're going to do it here in the near future at some point, this is our plan. The very next day, we finally got the ruling that the county was saying until September 28th, everything was virtual, right? The county really, in so many ways, didn't even want to have to make a decision either way. The governor in the state of Texas put it back on to the local officials, particularly the counties, to say, y'all have to make some decision because the school boards can't make decisions on their own or whatever. So fine, the ruling comes out, and it's going to be September 28th. And then just today, we get this guidance from the Attorney General saying, okay, no, now it's back on the school body, or there's somebody else to make the decision. And it's not even fully what the Attorney General said, but then the county judge says another thing during the county commissioner meeting today about, well, now it has to go back to the local school body. When it really boils down to all of this is that a whole lot of it, unfortunately, is that we don't even know everything. So, even when Dr. Scribner is saying that, hey, we have people reviewing the Attorney General's guidance today, he's telling you the truth because we just got this stuff right now. So even with this town hall, we come into the town hall prepared saying, okay, we got our plan together. This is what we're doing because we know we're staying virtual to the 28th and we're ready to roll that out. And before we can even get on the town hall to give you true information, something else came out and slammed us yet again. So with all that being the case, saying that we would love to say, hey, this is what it is, y'all, and this is what we're doing. And we do have plans in place. We have all the plans in place to be able to fully go back in person if we needed to do that, if that was the best thing to do. We're gathering PPE. If you watched the board meeting last week, we put money towards go buy everything you need to buy. Go do it all in order to make this thing safe if we have to go back in person. And we have everything. We've bolstered our virtual learning to be able to have true actual virtual learning instead of what we had to roll out after spring break last time. We were rolling out everything we could to say, hey, we don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know what's happening, but our kids still have to learn. Our students still deserve to learn. So since they still deserve to learn, we're going to give them everything we got at the moment to make sure that learning and instruction still happens. And so now during the summer, we've been able to bolster that and say, okay, we're going to really be able to roll out a robust online virtual curriculum that's really going to have, that the teachers are going to be able to implement, that the families will be able to know how to do these things. We have all of these things in place. Some of the answers that we want to be able to give you right now, the second we feel like we have a grasp of it and want to give it to you, we can't because something else happened. So truth be told, we don't know exactly everything that where this puts us as far as with the Attorney General's guidance today. We know what it says. We have the email, we have the order, we have all these things. But now we have to look in and say, okay, now that we have this new information, what are we doing now? Is it fully virtual? Is it in person in virtual? And we literally didn't even have time to get together before this call to have that conversation with real truth. So so the questions you'll get answered right here during this time is going to be the direct questions that we can't answer about what we have in place for virtual, what our plans are, because we know that eventually, whether it's September 28th, shortly after, next semester, whenever it may be, we're going to have plans as far as what in-person is going to look like. But we truly have not had the opportunity to truly digest and say which direction are we going to go starting August 17th, September 28th. Are we after Labor Day? Are we before? Are we doing this? And so Dr. Scribner and his team will absolutely be able to make that decision. They haven't even had the opportunity to solicit board input. We're just now getting input from the community, and we definitely want to hear from you. Please give your comments, your suggestions, your questions. But I just wanted to put that out there because it is so much wavering in the air, and y'all are not crazy. We really just don't know because stuff just keeps hitting us every time we're trying to make a true decision about what's going to be best. So I'm hoping that offers some kind of clarity to the situation. We're not trying to dance around answers. We're not trying to skate around the situation. We just keep getting new stuff all the time, and every time we think we got a handle, somebody rips the handle back from us again. So we'll continue to answer these questions, continue to ask, continue to give us give us your comments. We're going to answer them to the best of our ability, and then we'll be coming to you again soon with another real plan that we'll have based on the information that we're actually able to digest and have a conversation on. So I don't know if you want to speak to any of that, Dr. Scribner. I wasn't trying to overstep with that, but I just want the community to be clear that this is not our dance show we're doing. We're just really trying to give you what we got.
I appreciate that, Trustee Phillips, and you're absolutely right. We had for months had a plan for both to begin on August 17th for those parents who wanted in person, and for those parents who wanted their students to learn virtually, that they would learn virtually. In fact, those numbers were about even. About 52% of our parents early on voted for in-person instruction, and 48% of our parents voted for virtual. As we saw the number of cases rise 2 or so weeks after the 4th of July, we saw those numbers shift dramatically. In fact, it was moving more toward 60% virtually with those during that period of time a couple weeks after the 4th of July. The latest guidance that we received today, however, indicates that there will be no school funding for any district in Texas if they only offer virtual instruction, that there has to be an in-person. So we wanted to figure out how to design that. Is that all students? Is that some students? Is that special education students? Is that English language learners? Is that who is that? And those are the parameters that we are needing to implement. It's about managing these unexpected consequences of decisions. And please know that our team has been working all summer. A few of my team members have not taken a day off, even through the holidays, and we're going to continue to do what we can do in order to prepare for a successful opening of school in preparation of our students' success beyond high school and college career community leaders.
Thank you both, Mr. Phillips and Dr. Scribner, for addressing that. And, I want to reiterate what we started at the beginning. I shared that we really want to hear your questions, your feedback, any comments that you have, suggestions that you might have. Yes, we have a plan in place, but it is fluid, and we may have to make some adjustments or some tweaks to what we currently already have in place. We have about 3 more questions we're going to take live, and then we'll go back to Slido. Dr. Scribner, are you ready for the next one? All right. So our next person is Casey O'Neill. She's from Cook's Children. Miss O'Neill? Ms. O'Neill, you're on mute. Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on with Casey. Can we go on to our next one and then maybe come back to Ms. O'Neill?
And Casey is still muted as well. I don't know if that's playing a part. So Casey, if you're muted, unmute. If not, then yeah, Dr. Benefit, let's go right.
Okay. Melanie Grubbs has questions about sub training. Melanie, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. I'm in a very unique situation. I actually see this from all different perspectives, and I know a lot of people say that, but I actually am. I'm a teacher myself in the district. My husband teaches in the district and is very immunocompromised. So I have a spouse, who's very susceptible to this, and I have a student in the district. But something that we deal with all the time as teachers is, what if we get sick? Mm-hmm. And we have to call in for a sub. So, we're wanting this continuous, robust virtual education for our students. But, normally when I call in for a sub, I just expect the sub to, sit there and make sure that my classroom's not on fire or something. I mean, in all honesty, so are our subs going to be specifically trained to do the same work that we're supposed to be doing? Because we're going to need that, especially if, heaven forbid, something happens and we are gone for a long time, like with COVID. If we're gone for a long time, are our subs going to be trained?
Thank you, Ms. Grubbs, for the question.
So we have two categories of subs. Substitute teachers, traditional substitute teachers who may serve schools in Fort Worth or in Crowley or in Keller, all around the region. But then we also have our 180-day subs. They're contracted, and those substitutes are the ones we will be using first. And if the percentages remain similar to what the original student enrollment percentages were, where about half of the students wanted to learn in person and half of the students wanted to learn virtually, then that would logically indicate that we would need fewer in-person subs. So that 180-day contracted group would be able to cover many more classes. And those 180-day, if I may add, they do participate in all of our professional development trainings. We treat them as if they're full-time employees, because they just are assigned to different locations, as opposed to the traditional subs that many of us think about. I too have seen a couple comments on the chat. One in particular, I still think that we need to do a good job in clearly stating the difference between in-person instruction and virtual instruction. I think that there are some teachers who believe that I will be teaching 12 of my 24 students in person and then going home and teaching the other 12 virtually. That will not be happening. Teachers will not have to work double duty. We will be splitting those students out in an organized fashion. So one FTE, one full-time equivalent of an employee, will do one employee.
Thank you for that, Dr. Scribner, because that was several of the questions that were coming up. Teresa Hughes, she's a speech pathologist. She has a question. Teresa Hughes? Go ahead, Teresa. You're on. There you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm so sorry for my dog. So my question, as one of the speech pathologists for the district, is just getting some clarity regarding our virtual instruction plan, both for this first 6 weeks and then moving forward after September 28th. I think I can speak for a large number of my peers in saying that online instruction went better than many of us could have hoped, as far as seeing not only maintenance of our students' progress with IEPs, but growth in many ways. And so my concern and my question for you as a committee is, will we have the same flexibility that was offered to the teachers if we are indeed able to have that flexibility of teaching from home or from school remotely, as was outlined in the plans that were emailed to us yesterday? Or will we be considered support staff and be required to go to campus without being able to have that flexibility that was offered to us in the spring? And I ask that because we too have those same concerns of we have over 100 SLPs in our district. And I know, Dr. Scribner, you know this because your wife, but we have SLPs with health concerns. We have many SLPs with children. And so we share those same childcare concerns, and we are in a unique position being direct service providers with that direct instruction, providing that synchronous learning with those individualized small group therapy sessions. We're really, we don't know. We're kind of in the in-between no man's land, and we just have lots of questions. So I was wondering if you could provide clarity on, or if you know where we'll be this year.
Thank you, Teresa, for that question.
Thank you, Teresa. And I was debating whether or not to share with the community that my wife is in her master's program getting her speech pathology degree, but you handled that for me. Thank you. So thank you for the comment too. And I think speech is a very important individual support service. And remember, back to the original answer with regard to the core mission is instruction. The core instruction is what this organization is about teachers and students. So all the rest of us exist in order to support the magic that happens in a classroom between teachers and students. So like last spring, continuing forward this fall, we will continue to provide virtual services based on student needs, also schedule time in person. So back to the earlier conversation about what number or what percentage of students would be attending school in person. Even in the county health decree executive order, there was a provision that even though all students would have been learning virtually, we would have allowed students who with special needs or students who have difficulty with connectivity to attend in person. Similarly, with the guidance letter from the Attorney General this afternoon, we will be designing the services both in person and virtually. So it'll look an awful lot like last spring, with the exception of probably a higher percentage of scheduled in-person time for the students who are already in person, but then also for those students who are learning virtually. So if my son were one of those students and he were learning virtually, he would come in for his 45 minutes or whatever the period that he would be receiving services from you, whether it's once a week or whatever the schedule that the IEP delivered.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. And
if I could add to that, Dr. Benavides.
Go ahead.
So I'm glad that she mentioned that. As far as so, one of the things that we heard loud and clear was the communication aspect. The communication aspect internally and the communication aspect externally, right? And so with that, teachers and staff members were able to get correspondence about how we plan to move forward and what the options may look like. And I was definitely hearing back from educators within our system how they appreciated that, being able to have that option of what that's going to look like. And again, so after we send that out with that plan fully in place about what we're going to do, again, today we get something else that we now have to take into great consideration about how we're going to move forward with all. So I'm glad it came out when it did. So educators, our teachers within our district just know we care immensely. We care about your health, safety, and well-being. We first, as the adults, as the people entrusted with this school system, have to make decisions that are focused on the student first, absolutely. And then, much like Dr. Scribner alluded to in his opening, understanding that our teachers are our most important aspect of this whole education that we're trying to do here. So that's why yesterday, teachers, you were able to get that correspondence of us feeling all good and ready to pat ourselves on the back about here's what your option will look like. So you can take into consideration your planning, your health, your family, and your little ones that you're taking care of at home and everything. And then again, now we're going to be back to the drawing board trying to figure out what all of that looks like. So it doesn't mean that any of that is scrapped at all. Dr. Scribner and his team are going to be working to see, what numbers we have to do and all that, much like he alluded to, y'all. But I want those educators within our system, particularly the teachers, to know we absolutely hear you and we care about your health, safety, and well-being. That is not going unnoticed. It's not something that's not a part of this conversation. It holistically is. That's why the correspondence went out yesterday to you all, thinking that we were doing a good job. And now we got to revisit and see exactly what that's going to be able to look like as well. So hopefully that helps you all to know kind of where we are with some of that.
No, I appreciate you saying that, Mr. Phillips. Thank you so much. Dr. Scribner, we have one more question. This is from a high school parent, James Bell. He has a question on class rankings. Mr. Bell? You can unmute, Mr. Bell. Can you hear us? Hello? All right, I think we might be having technical difficulties with Mr. Bell. We can come back to him. We're going to go ahead and go back to Slido and answer a few more questions that we had. The first question is, it is clear after many discussions that our superintendent was heavily involved with this order. Why weren't the parents? He ultimately works for us. So it's kind of a question. You're on mute. And a comment at the same time.
Thank you for that question and comment, because it gives me an opportunity to kind of share with the larger community what we have been up to in the last 4.5 months. My communications with the decision makers around these issues actually began during the spring break. As I stated, the last day of in-person instruction in Fort Worth ISD was March the 6th. I remember that because that was my birthday. My meetings with the county judge and with the commissioner began on Monday, March the 9th during the spring break. In fact, early on, we had meetings every day. It was my first experience with Zoom, and many of us, I think, on tonight's call are much more adept at working virtually than we were 4.5 months ago. In any event, I've worked very closely with our county judge, and on those phone calls, it was many of us, not only school district leaders, most of the superintendents in Tarrant County, hospital leaders were representative, the medical health professionals were representative, daycare, childcare organizations were represented, chambers of commerce were represented, volunteer organizations were represented, after school program representative, and elected officials. So it was a comprehensive group meeting on a regular basis with our local elected officials. Many of you commented too when I participated with the mayor on her Facebook Live as well on the same issue. Additionally, working, in fact, just this afternoon at 3 o'clock, we had our most recent meeting virtually with Commissioner Morath. That's a large meeting with probably 1,000 superintendents. There are smaller groups. As you know, Fort Worth ISD participates in the System of Great Schools work, and we have a smaller work group. Those meetings are very productive because oftentimes we are the test group, test audience for ideas, and so we are able to help understand and help shape some of the positions at the commissioner's level. Also, I had a great opportunity just last Saturday afternoon, a 2-hour meeting via Zoom with the Speaker of the House and the Chair of the Education Committee. Maybe that was 2 Saturdays ago. And then President Ramos, the President of our Board of Trustees, and I both communicated with the Governor with regard to the need for flexibility, but also stability in funding. So while we all have our opportunities and we all have our roles, I think I'll continue to use my professional judgment with regard to representing the community, this board, and our parent groups and our entire school.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. I'm going to go to the next question. Why is there not a town hall meeting for staff questions that is separate from the parent questions?
That's an excellent suggestion, and I think that moving forward, we have other members of our Board of Trustees who want to participate. Last night, we benefited from Anael Luevanos, CJ Evans, President Ramos, and I served on last night's panel. Tonight, we've added Trustee Robbins and Trustee Phillips, and I think moving forward, we'll have the opportunity to add in a mixture of our other panelists. Perhaps one of those moving forward, it would be appropriate to hear from faculty and staff. Again, our support staff has a lens. Our faculty certainly has a lens, and we want to make sure that we are hearing from them as well. So thank you for that suggestion. In addition to these town halls, though, please all of our stakeholders, whether they're internal community or external community, please continue to utilize our Let's Talk site, which is on our website, to post questions. Regardless of whether you are an employee or a parent or any other member of the community. We monitor Let's Talk platform daily and make sure that your questions are routed to the correct department and answering your questions. In fact, we are being evaluated based on our turnaround. So please remember coming town halls. The Let's Talk page on our website is another avenue to give and to gain information. I think it's important. I've always said this from my time as a high school teacher, as an elementary school principal, and up on down the line, that the only authentic and meaningful communication is a two-way flow of communication. We can learn as much from our parents and our students and our community as they can learn from us, and we need to continue that exchange.
Thank you. We're going to take one more question from Slido, and then we're going to go back to some live questions, Dr. Scribner. And just for our audience who's joining us or who's been on the call, we are going to try to wrap up this conversation at around 6:40, 6:45, so we can have some last comments and some thoughts from our panelists today. And again, we will try to answer your questions through question and answer. And like Dr. Scribner said, he stole my line. Please ask on Let's Talk, and or we will be posting some of these questions on question and answer as well. The last question here is, when we return, would you allow school-based staff to wear scrubs? Comfortable, easy to clean in hot water, and no need to dry clean like many of our professional clothes.
We're in unprecedented times, and I think it's only responsible that we look at our dress code and accommodate. That sounds like a reasonable request to me. Obviously, we have to have some guidelines, but the bottom line is there high quality instruction taking place in the classroom, and allowing staff to be comfortable, to use easy to clean clothing, and you're right, there are other professions that use those every day. So I would be absolutely open to considering that, and I'll ask my team to look into that. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go switch over now to some live. The next person coming on is Wanda McKinney. Wanda has a question about intervention for students who have fallen behind. Wanda, there you go.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having this town hall. I do have that question, but to precede it, I was just wondering, do we have an accurate count of which students did not have internet access or did not complete the virtual lessons in the spring and summer? Do we have that data, and is it aggregated by race?
Yes, we do. In fact, at the outset in March, we found about 10% of our total population was not connecting. Our work teams reached out and really did an extremely effective job of addressing that and bringing that number considerably lower. I think we landed somewhere around 96% of our students, all students engaged, but 96% on a regular basis. And of course, this fall, the rules are much different with regard to the requirements and the guidelines and the strict framework, the stringent framework that I think is a good thing from TEA to ensure that students are connecting for 4 hours and the pre-K for 3 hours. So we are aware of that. Your governing board that represents this community authorized my team last spring. We purchased 24,000 devices, Chromebooks and hotspots prior to the COVID-19 shutdown. We had provided one-to-one computers, one computer for each student from 6th grade through the 12th grade. Quickly, the board pivoted and authorized us to purchase Chromebooks for all 5th graders. So today, all students have Chromebooks from 5th grade all the way through 12th grade. We are moving toward pre-K, kindergarten, all the way, including K1, 2, 3, 4, so that all students in Fort Worth ISD have a device. And as recently as last week, the board authorized an additional $2.4 million investment in hotspot. Those are short-term fixes. Now, and also with mobility, we also, meaning mobility, if a student moves from Fort Worth to Arlington or Arlington to Fort Worth or moving from school to school, we want to make sure that we are providing computers for those students as well. Moving forward, in longer term, we really need to do better as a society. We understand that there is a digital divide. This really exposed that disparity. There are parts of our city that don't have a reliable, robust internet access, Wi-Fi towers. And I've actually worked with our business community, with our foundations, and some elected officials to ensure that if there is what am I struggling for? If they are allowed to a permit, if a permit is to be granted to put a Wi-Fi tower on one side of town, then also we need to put one in an underserved part of town. I think the foundations and the business community are going to be very, very helpful to ensure that our faith leaders are also on board. So that's a longer term solution. We need to invest in connectivity as we would any other, whether it's electricity, whether it's plumbing, any other utility. We need to treat it as such. Your second question, you wanted to ask a question about students who are behind, I think.
She asked that second question. Mr. Robbins, did you have a response as well? I saw your hand go up.
It was on a previous subject, and I'll hit it at the end, so thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Ms. McKinney, did you have a second question you wanted to ask us as well? You're on mute. I don't know if you know that or not.
I think it had to do with remediation. And if I want, Ms. McKinney, there you go ahead.
Okay, not remediation. As a matter of fact, Mr. Moore, who was on the town hall meeting June 25th, actually mentioned that remediation was not going to be sufficient. That for those students that have fallen behind, we know that African-American students and Hispanic students were already behind as far as reading levels, even prior to COVID. And so in response to my question back on June 25th, Mr. Moore said that there would be a more robust plan of intervention, aggressive intervention for those students, such as scaffolding or something more challenging than remediation? So that's my question. For those students, I understand that that's good that they had access to the internet, but we know that a lot of students did not complete the virtual learning because there wasn't, for whatever reason, supervision lacked in the homes, or have problems navigating the online systems. So for those students that have fallen further behind, what are the aggressive plans to help those students recover? We're not even talking about advancement, but to help those students recover lost ground.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning Jerry Moore is our Chief Academic Officer, and he's you're right, and he's absolutely right. We're not interested in remediation. We're interested in acceleration. And as a result of these last 5 months of students not attending in-person class, we believe that we are going to see some students who have really fallen behind. I've identified it as academic
historic regression.
Academic, yeah, you got it right. You heard me. You heard that one.
Hear you. I did.
Academic regression, and particularly in our youngest learners, our kindergarten, first and second grade. So we're really going to have to address those. The example that I would give that works the best is we already know that virtual instruction, while maybe not perfect, it works and it can work. And we can extend the school day even once things get back to normal. And now adults and students are more adept at this kind of virtual learning. Think about it. We can go to school in the traditional brick and mortar school building during the day, and then maybe in the afternoon, in the evening, on the weekends, continue that learning virtually. I see that this is really going to change our profession dramatically. One example, we know it works. In Fort Worth ISD, we've adopted the Leadership Academy framework, where we took 5 of our schools that were historically underperforming, and we have turned them from underperforming schools. In the first year, they all were B, letter grade B, and one of them was a 79 in terms of their academic growth. Those leadership academies, what we did was we invited all of the teachers who had been there, and some of these schools have been struggling for 5 and 6 years, to reapply for their jobs at those campuses. Some of them moved on, some of them retired, some of them moved to other campuses. And we identified our highest performing teachers and incentivized them to go work at the leadership academies with a $10,000 stipend. The school day did not end at 3. It extended until 4 p.m. with an extra hour of mathematics and reading embedded into the school day. And students didn't go home at 4. They stayed for after school programming, for enrichment, for athletics, for tutoring, for fine arts. And then they had dinner at 5:45 and went home. What we do know about students who are not starting the educational race at the educational starting line with some of the infrastructure and support that other students may have in different environments is that they need high quality instruction and more time on task. So you're absolutely right. Mr. Moore is absolutely right. It's about acceleration, not remediation.
Thank you, Ms. McKinney, for that question. Our next person coming up is going to be Ms. Rodriguez. She has a question on PPE. Ms. Rodriguez, question on PPE. Go ahead, Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes, I just wanted to ask if teachers were required to buy their own PPE, as far as like masks, gloves, like Lysol. I know that normally, during the year, we put a lot of money into our classrooms, but I'm just afraid that if we do go back, some of our kids won't have masks to wear, and I'm going to be sanitizing a lot more than I did last year. So I'm just wondering if I have to pay out of pocket, or if the district is going to provide that for us, for the remainder of the year.
Thank you very much for that question, Ms. Rodriguez. Your board, our board of trustees who are here tonight, and their colleagues have invested millions of dollars in personal protection equipment, PPE. We have purchased masks for adults and for students. We've purchased disinfectant. We purchased a liquid hand sanitizer. We purchased fogging machines, as I mentioned earlier. We purchased plexiglass, shields, all of that. So while historically, and I remember when I was a teacher, and we all know that you love on your kids, and you end up bringing something from home or buying something to help them. We don't want it to be a necessity required. So the district is going to be providing PPE for all of our faculty and all of our staff and all of our students. And we're going to have, and that costs money. So moving forward, we hope that all of you will help us advocate at the state level and the federal level for an investment in our students so that they can remain safe and in school and learning.
Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much for saying that as well, Kent, because that's exactly what I was going to want to say as well. We have a budget that we already passed, and we were passing that budget based on best interpretations that we had, best information we had at the time, knowing that we would have to make amendments to that budget and things like that. So we're willing to do so. But yeah, with health and safety being at the forefront of all the decisions that we're making right now, we know that we're going to make sure that we have resources available for PPE, for hand sanitizer, for soaps, for all of these things that we know that are going to be exorbitant expenses now that on a normal school year just would not have been the same cost. And so when you hear about these debates, as I know that many of you are, about funding public schools, then this is what we're talking about, because we're going to have money to be able to, we can shift around dollars and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that our students and our teachers and staff are safe within the school building. But there still is a finite amount of money that we're doing all of this shifting and pulling and trying to figure all these things out with. And so Dr. Scribner, Mike Ball, who's the CFO, they're doing a wonderful job of trying to make sure they're presenting things to the board to say, hey, this is where we are now. This is what we need to do moving forward. But as y'all well know, with all these things changing all the time, more money is going to have to be pulled in different directions than what we had originally anticipated. So he's absolutely right. This is where, when we talk about that advocacy, we need folks talking to the powers that be that give us this state funding, powers that be to give us this federal funding. All this, that we need this funding within the local school bodies if we're going to be able to utilize this funding to make sure we have PPE, hand sanitizer, soap, all the disinfectants, all these things that we know are going to make the environment safe. We want to be able to provide them, and we're going to need the funds to be able to do that. So that's going to be a big help from the community if y'all have to advocate for that.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. We're going to take another question, and this one is from Kimberly. Kimberly had some questions about athletics. I know we haven't had a question about athletics this evening. Kimberly, go ahead. We can hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I am so sorry. So I'm new to the whole district, new to Fort Worth. We just moved up here from San Antonio. So everything with this district is very new. I was preparing for my children in San Antonio, but now it's a shift of gears with this district. So it looks like a lot of things here are being done quite differently. And one of my questions was with, I understand that there was a plan and there's a backup plan that we're executing right now, but with athletics in play, do we have a plan and a backup plan for athletics? And with my understanding with receiving funds for the school with having children in class, would it also be an option for the children just to come to school just for athletics and do majority of the virtual learning at home to minimize the risks?
So thank you and welcome to Fort Worth. My wife and I just moved here a few years ago too. You're going to love it. With regard to athletics, the UIL, the University Interscholastic League, is the governing body for athletics, as you know, both in San Antonio, here in Fort Worth, and across the state. And their guidelines likely are going to change as well as a result of this most recent letter of guidance. Previously, they had indicated different rules and regulations for schools in different divisions. Fort Worth, interestingly enough, has schools in the largest Division 6 and also 4 and 5. So we have a unique other urban districts in the same boat. With regard to athletics outside participation was going to be the only way that students were going to be able to participate. We will be, again, reaching out to the UIL, our athletics department, and getting their most updated guidance. I think you had a question in there about, can a student who is studying virtually participate in extracurricular athletics? And our position is yes, that they can, but certainly we want to connect with the UIL here, and those are going to be some of the meetings that we have in the next 24 to 48 hours, and communicate with our internal and external community what we learned. So thank you for bringing that to top of mind as well. It is important that our students have a well-rounded education, not only during the school day with regard to their academic development, but also social, emotional, and teamwork aspect, and also the physical aspect of participating in that.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. Our next question is from LGK30. It's a question about buses. LGK30. I'm not sure if they're still on the line. There you go. LG, you can go. You're on silent or mute. Can you hear us, LG? Okay. I think
LG is the type of phone they're using or something like that. So I don't even know if that's the person's name. So we might have to move forward.
All right, thank you. The next person is Alma Alvarez. She had a question about virtual after September 28th and what that might look like. Ms. Alvarez, you can go ahead and go. You're on mute, Ms. Alvarez. There you go. Can you hear us? Ms. Alvarez, can you hear us? I'm not sure if we're having technical difficulties or what's going on. We're going to go ahead and go on to our next one, and we'll come back to Ms. Alvarez. We've got Jill Williams. Had a question about indoor air quality. Jill Williams, if you'll go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go, Ms. Williams.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I was just concerned about whether or not the district has done anything to upgrade the ventilation system, whether we're going to be, whether you've upgraded the filters. I know that the MERV 13 filters are the ones that are recommended by epidemiologists. What's been done to improve the air quality? Will windows open? I'm concerned about all those things, since we know that COVID is transmitted through the air.
As are we, absolutely. As you know, we are in the midst of renovations at all of our high schools, which includes our HVAC. That though does not address our middle schools and our elementaries. HVAC hours, our staff, we are extending their hours and bringing on more staff. We may also even be shifting with regard to job duties and responsibilities. So some employees whose jobs are tangential to our HVAC staff can also help to change filters and put in newer and more effective filters. This is going to be a challenge not only in Fort Worth but across districts across Texas and the nation. And you're absolutely right that this is something that will take a great deal of investment. Again, back to the point of as we improve our quality, we need to increase our investment in order to do so. We right now have a vendor that we are working with who's looking at bulk purchasing. I'll be bringing that recommendation to the board. We have 12 million square feet of facilities in Fort Worth ISD and over 140 schools and other buildings, and this is a monumental undertaking. Now that the instruction will be in person and virtual. We also recognize that if those percentages hold, we would have about half as many as normal students in buildings, and perhaps that would provide some relief. But certainly the investment in filters that the board has authorized is something that we think will help.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. So we're going to take 2 more questions from Slido, and then we will go ahead and begin with our closing statements. Thank you, John. So our first question for Slido is, if a teacher has to quarantine, will they have to pull from their sick days? Will they be charged by the district if they don't have the days? You're on mute. Thank you.
So we've provided our teachers and our employees with information with regard to the appropriate individuals to contact. Every case is different, obviously. Some teachers have significant leave time built up, and others don't. If there is a confirmed case of COVID, and as you've seen in the TEA guidelines, there are situations in which schools would have to be closed for 5 days. We're seeing that in Major League sports now. One of the baseball teams is going to have to cancel because a dozen of their players. So we need to realize this is a real concern, and despite every situation being unique, we will follow a protocol that follows CDC guidelines as well as our Texas Education Agency guidelines, our district policy, and also state and federal employment law. So every case is individual, however, within a framework of policies and procedures and employment law. So we will monitor that very, very closely. We're thrilled in our human capital division. We have added a new leader in human capital, and also have broken out our legal department. So Cynthia Rincon, who's done a great job for us, will be helping us through our legal questions. And Kermit Spears has joined us from the Houston area to help with our hiring and our talent division.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. And then I know we've had this question come up several times. What is the district's response to TA still mandating STAR testing?
Well, I think one thing that we have to remember is that Governor Abbott last spring actually was one of the first governors who indicated that he would be putting a hiatus on STAR testing. In his words, we're gonna do the right thing for Texas children and ask for forgiveness if need be. Now, many other states followed our lead. I understand that the TEA, as I mentioned earlier, I speak with Commissioner Morath and his team on a regular basis. They are listening to concerns from districts, especially from parents and teachers on this issue. Yesterday, you saw that the requirement for promotion for 5th grade and 8th grade students was lifted. Fort Worth ISD will continue to provide feedback on STAR requirements for the 2021 school year. Our main focus is opening on August the 17th, making sure that happens effectively and efficiently in the best interest of students and faculty, whether it be in person or virtually. Again, I think that the Let's Talk app is a great place to share your concerns, and I understand the TEA also has a page in which community members can share their concerns on this issue, the STAR test, and many others.
Dr. Scribner, last night, thank you for that. Last night, there was a common question that was asked, and I want to make sure that we also share with this particular audience. The question was about choice programs and specialty classes. How will they take place if they're done virtually?
Yeah, similarly to our comprehensive high schools and our traditional schools, the teachers will be designing those lessons. That's why it's important in August the 10th that any teacher who needs assistance with regard to virtual instruction receives that. And to the earlier question about acceleration versus remediation, I really do think that one way how do we get 1.5 years of instruction done for Texas students who lost almost half a year last spring? And I think that the answer is going to be with more instruction, longer school, longer days, both some in person, some virtual, weekend work. One of the ideas that we had we've gone full virtual, and we still might at some point in the year. We just don't know what the percentage of positive and what the case numbers will be moving forward. We want to monitor those data very, very closely. But our thought was to identify our content specialists, our top instructional specialists, our top teachers, and have them provide lessons on YouTube, much like a TED Talk, if you will, where if Quinton Phillips is the best fourth grade math teacher in the school district, and he provides fourth grade math lessons, and other teachers use that as a jump start, as a prompt in their class, where a Fort Worth ISD master teacher teaches Fort Worth ISD curriculum to Fort Worth ISD students, and other teachers build upon that. That's not only good for students, it's good for teachers, because it's real world professional development for me as a fourth grade math teacher to look at Quinton, how he teaches, and learn and improve my craft as a result of that.
Thank you for that. So we're going to transition into some final thoughts, but before we do, I just want to remind the audience, I know that we probably didn't get to every question tonight, and so please remember to use Let's Talk. That's an option for you to continue to submit questions, and we do try to respond to those questions as quickly as possible. And also, we will be doing a Q&A for the town halls from yesterday and today to continue to answer the questions that you still have. Please know this conversation does not end today. We want to continue to answer those. And as Dr. Scribner and Mr. Phillips mentioned, this is ever changing, and we don't have any final responses right now because we just got some new information today. And so we may have to go back and make some adjustments based on the plan that was recently presented. And that information will follow as soon as the plan is finalized. We will definitely make sure that our staff knows before we share that out with the media, as Dr. Scribner has been doing. So we're going to start with Mr. Phillips first, and then we'll go to Mr. Robbins, and then Mr. Ramos, and then Dr. Scribner.
Thank you so much, Dr. Benavides. Yeah, y'all. We're trying to get this right. We're trying to get this whole thing figured out. Even looking at some of the comments is about, we answering this question, we're trying to answer them all. So the Slido feature, what it was able to do was able to make it to where you can rank the questions as they came in for people to be able to participate that way. That way we know we're answering those ones that were more pertinent to one that people were saying they wanted to hear the most about. But we know that there's so many details that you're still wanting to know about, and we want to provide you that information. So the best thing to do right now, I would say, is that on our website we have a return to learning document that our superintendent was able to put out that outlines so much of the detail. And of course, there still may be some questions even after you're able to review that. But I would ask everyone to review that, because that is the comprehensive plan that we had moving forward. And like I said, we're still going to, Dr. Scribner, his team, us as a board of trustees, we'll still be getting together, figuring these things out, trying to make sure we're conveying the proper information to the public. But please go review that document, and you'll get a lot of answers to maybe some of the more detailed questions we didn't get to today. But with that being said, I'll say this: just what I hope this forum, many of these forums, and the way that we're trying to make sure that we're being correspondent to everybody. I want to dispel this myth, right? This ivory tower myth. You know what I mean? So people feel so often protected bodies that elected officials, we sit in this ivory tower and we look down upon everyone and make these decisions as if they don't impact us as well. But I'm letting you know right now, I'm a parent of 2 kids within Fort Worth ISD. Both of my kids go to Fort Worth ISD schools, and every decision I'm talking about on the board directly affects my children. It's the same thing with President Ramos. He has a son in Fort Worth ISD school. Same thing with Trustee Jackson. Same thing with Trustee Luevano. I mean, and on down the line, Trustee Dart, Trustee Paz, we all have children within the school district. My parents and grandparents graduated from the school district. I'm an alum of Dunbar High School in Fort Worth ISD. Same thing with so many of our people that's on this board. So we're invested and we care, and we're not out making some decisions that don't have anything to do with us, that are not affecting us. If we're doing virtual learning, my wife and I, who is also in education, which we also make it, she's in a different district, but when we're making these decisions, we have to decide what childcare is going to look like for us. We have to make the decision of in-person versus virtual when we're registering. So these things are not something that we can just say, hey, we'll just see what happens to the public. We got skin in this game. And I know that's the case for all of our trustees on down the line. So just know that we actually consider what's happening with our students, because we're not talking about just some students we don't know about. We're talking about our children, literally, right? Even our superintendent, his child is in the district in a school building. So everyone that's making these decisions, we have great skin in the game. And we care immensely about the health, the safety, the academic rigor, the virtual. We care about all of it, and we're trying to do the best we can with the information that we got as it comes through. So just understand that, and I just want to dispel that myth that we're just making these decisions arbitrarily. These are agonizing decisions. These are keep you up late at night decisions. These are constant phone calls, constant Zoom talks, trying to gather information from every sector of the wood. And so just know that we do care. We will try to give you as much information as we have it. We will try to make sure we're answering the questions the way you need them answered, because we need to make sure that our students are getting the very best possible education they possibly can have. And all of us are completely committed to that. That's regardless of political affiliation. That's regardless of party lines. When it comes to us in that trustee room, when it comes to our staff, we put all of that to the side, and that's not what we're bringing in that room. We're bringing in our care and concern for people, because we are in a people business, and these decisions that we make affect people. We can't say that's the case for every governing body that may be having some input in these decisions, but I can tell you, there's a Fort Worth ISD school board trustee, I can honestly say that the people in those rooms making those decisions care really about the citizens, the people of Fort Worth, the students that are in our buildings, and that's what we're trying to make sure that we keep safe and give academic rigor. So just really appreciate y'all sticking in there with us, review that document to answer even more of your questions, and we're going to be trying to do our very best for you. That you have my word.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Mr. Robbins?
Thank you, Dr. Benavides. I would like to thank all of the participants this evening for their questions and comments. We had over 500 participants, which is a huge number. It's the biggest Zoom meeting that I've ever been involved with, but that's still a small fraction of our total constituents. So we thank you for being with us this afternoon and evening, for voicing your concerns. It's truly helpful to us to hear that. This is all about student achievement. Everything that we do is about student achievement. We must learn how to teach your children and our children, no matter what the format, so that they can be successful. And when all of our students are learning and are successful, Fort Worth will be the kind of community that we want it to be. And we will not stop until that happens. I'd also like to mention that communications, as was mentioned earlier, is extremely important, both internally and externally. It's very, very important that our employees hear information about their school district from us before they hear it from the media. So we will be focusing, when we do communications plans, on internal as well as external communications. As was said, please use our website to get the kind of detail that you need to be able to answer the questions that you have. If you can't get information there, go somewhere else. If you can't get information from anyplace else, contact us, and we will direct you to the right people to make sure that all of your questions and concerns are answered. It may not be the answer that you want, but you deserve, and we want to provide you with the most accurate and best information that we can in as timely a manner as we can. So thank you for being with us this evening. Thank you for providing us with information that has been very helpful to us, and we look forward to continuing to work with you going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robbins. President Ramos?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Benavides. A couple of things are evident to me. One, beginning with how dependent our community at large is on our school system. I'm mindful that opening up our schools has to include the conversation about mobility. So many people in motion, and increasing the opportunity for the virus to spread at a much higher rate is a real conversation we're going to continue to have. Our board has not had the chance to meet since the decision was made this afternoon. I get the common assumption that this is a said and done. This is easy to do. This is not a technical decision. This is an adaptive problem that requires an adaptive solution. I want the community at large to know that there is a history associated with marginalized communities and the medical profession. Right now, there are conflicting articles and reports and information being disseminated in our communities. And the reality is that we've got to have conversations that continue to isolate race. That, you know, we got to keep saying it out loud. There are 89% children of color in Fort Worth Independent School District. There are a majority of children that are free and reduced, which means code for not having enough to be able to survive on a daily basis. Those are conversations we're having about the access to food, the mental well-being, the physical well-being. But those narratives that have been put out there, you know, and being conflicting a number of times, I, as one trustee, never imagined making decisions that would probably mean life or death for students, for teachers, and community at large. I know that myself and my colleagues are going to continue to have that conversation, and hopefully, like I said, in a specially called board meeting. We asked for flexibility from Austin, and we've gotten more politics. And I'm just going to be real, because I don't get paid for this job. I'm going to say we're getting more politics. And we are now seeing the result of our school system that has been inadequately funded, not having the resources to be able to do the things that our community is demanding from us to do. I hear the conversations about providing childcare, but we've been struggling to just even do the basics for all of our students. And now that this has happened, now that it's all been exposed, we've got to have those conversations with our elected officials, not only locally. And anytime I hear that we probably ought to open up and we ought to do X, Y, Z, the reality is that to me, that's code that Black and brown people can continue to die. And I come from a neighborhood in a zip code that is highly exposed with the ridiculous number of rate of how many people are dying in my community. Looking at the numbers in Houston and in the Valley and hearing that there's people in ice boxes, that there are ice trucks being brought in to keep corpses. That is a very real conversation for our community to continue to have. I think that's an advantage of having single member districts, that there are going to be 9 people with 9 different perspectives. And so understanding that I don't get paid for it, I get to speak my truth and from my lens, which means that I'm a brown parent in a community that has been hit so hard. And I have a brown son that's still left to work through the school system. And knowing that I have the privilege and the ability to be able to support him with good connection internet, that is not the norm in my neighborhood, that is not the norm in our district, we got to continue to have that conversation, because this pandemic is no joke. I'm scared. I'm not only scared for my sons, my family, my community, our country. I'm super scared for the students, and I'm super scared for our teachers, who have also been very vocal in this webinar or in this session. I hear you, teachers. I hear you, educators. And at the end of the day, they're asking the right questions. What happens if the domino effect comes and we lose our educators in our classrooms? What then? Who's going to jump into the classrooms to take care of our babies? And what happens when our babies do come home? And we got to have real conversation that these are multi-generational homes. This is not just a 2-parent household with 1 or 2 children. These are multi-generational homes with grandparents, aunts, uncles, families. There is a whole undocumented population that we've got to also consider. So I don't know if we have the capacity to do it. And those are the conversations that I know that we're going to love, that we're going to be having. And we got to have the real talk that people of color are the most impacted by this pandemic. You know, honestly, we need community. And I'm just going to say it in Spanish. Necesitamos comunidad. And the thing that I love about my hood is that we know how to bind together. We've had the days of gang violence and all kinds of ridiculous things. We have learned how to lean on one another. And I'm hoping that as a community in Fort Worth, and particularly in Fort Worth ISD, that we will work collaboratively, that the nasty messages towards one another, mindful that students and young people are watching how we're interacting as adults, not only in person, but also virtually, that we be mindful of what that means for us, when we do, God willing, get past this pandemic, because there's going to be a record of how we conducted ourselves during this time. Last part is, I'm going to promise and vow to the public community that our board will more than likely be getting together soon. All 9 different single member perspectives will be in the room, and it will be a good dialogue, because as Mr. Robbins said, it is supposed to be focused on student outcomes. And right now it's like we have to take a pause to say, how do we make sure that we take care of young people, lives, and our educators? With that, I'll get off my soapbox, my friend.
Thank you, President Ramos. I really appreciate you isolating race and speaking your truth. That's very important for the community to hear that perspective as well. Dr. Scribner.
Thank you very much, President Ramos and Trustee Phillips and Trustee Robbins for your leadership during this unprecedented global pandemic. You and all of the other 6 colleagues that you have, our trustees, really have set a strong foundation for us to navigate through these difficult times. This afternoon, as we've said, we received new guidelines in a guidance letter from Attorney General Paxton to the mayor of Stephenville, Texas. Our Commissioner of Education actually cited this guidance letter in reiterating that virtual instruction would only be allowed and only be funded if there were an in-person component. So some students attending in person and some students virtually. We talked about how our team will be planning for that diligently in the next 24 to 48 hours. Safety and security and health is the #1 priority of this board and of my team, not only for students, but also for teachers, faculty and staff. We are committed to come back to school on the 18th of August, and we want to continue to hear from you. As we said, we will be having additional town halls, but this is a fluid environment. And we know that, I know personally that neither I nor our trustees take lightly their responsibility in serving 83,000 students and over 10,000 employees. While academic success is our mission, the #1 priority is the safety and health of our students, faculty, and staff. So I want to thank everyone. Before I turn it back over to Dr. Benavides, I want to thank everyone for joining. We know that well over 1,000 people have watched via YouTube and Facebook, and many questions, while were answered, there were many more that were not answered. So please follow up with us at fwisd.org/feedback, and continue to check our website, fwisd.org/forward, for the most up-to-date information about our plans to return from learning. Look forward to hearing from us soon, early, and often. So thank you to the board, and thank you to our entire Fort Worth ISD school community, both our internal and external community, for your support of our 83,000 students. Doreen?
Thank you. Again, I just want to reiterate, I appreciate you being on tonight and answering as many questions as possible for our community. I know that we're very much needed to hear from you and just put some responses to the questions that they've been asking for several weeks now. And I know that we're not concluded with this. It will be a continuing conversation, but I do appreciate your time tonight. School board members, thank you so much for being here. That does conclude. Please remember to go to Let's Talk and answer any questions that you might still have, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you all. Buenas noches.